Welcome to this latest edition of the Ril Dil Podcast. I'm your host, Ril Gerald Quinn, episode 1006, a new champion. And that's what we will have in the NBA this year. We'll get right to it as the Oklahoma City Thunder just completely overwhelmed and destroyed the Denver Nuggets 195 to 95. Just overwhelming, just destroying them in that game seven. They took it. They didn't even. It wasn't going to be a close game. They wasn't even messing around from that standpoint. Um, a well, a great battle to say the least. By the Denver Nuggets, you give them a ton of credit. 125-93. Cheated. Sorry, Denver. Gave you two more points than what you actually scored. But this was a game. This is what we grew up on. We would see series go back and forth, and it would get to game seven, and the home team, in some cases, in many cases, would just beat the daylights out of the road team. And it hadn't been this way since the bubble. You had seen a number of home teams lose game sevens on the road. Well, that was not the case. That was, of course, not the case in this game. From the second quarter on, this was all Oklahoma City. They just come at you in waves. They come at you with, eight, nine, sometimes 10 players. Some of the best defense that you'll frankly ever see. Like, they had Joker in jail, in essence. You want to complain about the physical play, you can complain about the physical play, the strategies, the defensive strategies they had with Caruso guarding them and just, able to pack the paint because Denver couldn't get offense from anybody, from no one outside of, Christian Brown. That was it. And Denver, of course, there's a lot of questions to answer in the offseason. They absolutely wasted one of the great individual offensive years in recent NBA history in Nikola Jokic. Without question, whether he wins MVP or not, I don't think he will. But certainly had an MVP season and had an all-time great offensive season. Uh, with that being said, Oklahoma City really did as well of a job defensively that you could possibly do against that guy, against him. He still had his numbers, but shot considerably lower. His numbers as far as shooting wise were down from 3-point line as well as overall field goal percentage. Turnovers were up. His assists were not. He didn't have big time assist games in this series, and they listen. Oklahoma City right now defensively has been dominant in the postseason. They are giving up only 103 points per 100 possessions. Per 100 possessions, that would best their regular season number by 4 points, and they were the best regular season defense in the league in terms of per 100 possessions. So they are playing defense at a level they're lapping the field from a defensive standpoint right now. When you look at the next closest team in terms of that number is Minnesota at 108. So they're 5 points better than the next closest team, which is remarkable to say the least. And listen, Oklahoma City, before I get to Denver, Oklahoma City passed all the checkpoints. Now, you can make a case that this series probably shouldn't have went to 7 games. Oklahoma City clearly gift wrapped game one. That game should not come down to, Aaron Gordon knocking down a three. They were in total control of that game. And that game, they did everything to wet the bed. We understand that. So I can make a case that this probably should have been a 6-game series. But everybody wondered, what would a Denver matchup look like? Everybody wondered how would they respond in close games. You're going to look back, and the most important game in this series was game 4. I know everybody wants to say game 5, with the series tied at 2. And once they were able to win that game, then you give yourself, then you basically, you make them to win not only 2 in a row, but have to win a game 7 in OKC. But to me, the most pressure they had in this series was being down 2-1 with game 4 on the road. We're coming off a devastating loss in game 3, in game where they were up late by 3. Aaron Gordon hits a 3, and they get ran over in overtime. And then you go into that Sunday. Now, the good thing for them, they had going for them on that Sunday was it was a quick turnaround. So you go from Friday, uh, Friday to Sunday. That was, of course, the 92-87 game where the first quarter of that game was 17-8, and would set offense back, 100 years by both teams, and neither team shot the ball particularly well in that game altogether. So they were able to gut out that game and get the series back on their terms, which have at 2-2 and having 2 or 3 games at home, regaining home court advantage. Last 3 games of the series, SGA was phenomenal. Almost 33 points a game on 60% shooting, 54 from 3. Last night, he goes up his numbers here. Last night, SGA 12 of 19, 35 points, 4 assists, 3 steals. Didn't have a high rebounding game. Normally, he's in that 5 to 6 rebounding edge area, but did need it. Only 3 rebounds, but only missed 7 shots. 8 or 9 from the line. 35 points, was a plus 32. Was clearly the best player on the floor. Was the best player on the floor. And he did what he had to do. Like if you're the guy who's going to win MVP, if you are a team that's serious about winning a championship, you take care of business at home in a game 7. This would have been a devastating loss for OKC. And I don't, we would have been giving all praises and giving flowers to Denver. But I'm telling you, if OKC loses that game, I would have been destroying them on this podcast. You can't win 68 games, set all these records, and then lose a home game 7 in the second round. They're just like, no one you're gonna get. That's like you go down as one of the biggest disappointments in NBA history. If that would have happened, but that was not the case whatsoever. Again, this was story about this game was the Oklahoma City defense. They came out first quarter, got down by 11. They looked tight outside of SGA. Couldn't make a shot. Jalen Williams, who ended up having a great game, at 20 with the 24 points and had a big second quarter. He was horrible in the first quarter, but second quarter he goes out there in the second quarter, 8 for 11, 17 points, and really got some layups, some off turnovers, and next thing and that really allowed him to kind of breathe easy, and he ended up having a great game. And they needed him to bounce back. He was awful in game 6. I mean, he was flat out just dreadful in game 6. He came into game 7 shooting 33% for the series. So you get a big performance out of him. And the defensive performers you got out of Alex Caruso was just, Alex Caruso, now again, keep this in mind, no one can stop Joker. Like there's no individual. It's not like Alex Caruso was out there stopping Joker by himself. But the idea that a dude who's probably at least 100 pounds less, giving up 100 pounds, giving up in terms of height, about 5 inches in terms of height, the idea that he's able to compete like that and bother Joker as much as he bothered Joker it just shows you what type of competitor, what type of defensive mindset, what type of player Caruso was. Caruso in this series had 2 defensive masterpieces. I think that his best defensive performance was in game 1, actually. The game that they lost. He was tremendous in that game. they came up short. But I thought that game one performance, this one will go down as a better one because they won the game, and OKC and Denver only had 93 points. But that game, we're talking about that game one. He had like six steals and two blocks. He was all over the place in that game. And listen, it's the reason why Sam Presley is one of the best executives, the top executive in the sport right now. He goes out there, gets Hartenstein, gets Caruso. Both those moves absolutely pay big dividends in this over the course of the season, and certainly in this postseason. Um, Again, OKC absolutely had to win this game. Like you can't have a situation where you win 68 games, you have the highest point differential in NBA history. You have clearly, and I mean clearly, the best team in the NBA remaining. Clearly, the best team in the NBA remaining is, and even with Boston limping, I thought OKC was a better team. So OKC will go into the Final Four as, without question, the team to beat. We'll talk more about that matchup with Minnesota later on. As far as Denver goes, listen, I heard a lot of Denver praise from a standpoint of, hey, they took it to game 7. You had Michael Porter Jr. playing basically, with one shoulder. Aaron Gordon plays with a grade 2 hamstring, which, hats off to him. Like that is a brutal injury. I mean, that's in essence what Steph Curry has, right? And that took Steph out the Minnesota series, the grade 2 hamstring. He plays with it, had 11 rebounds. We know he had no explosion, couldn't sprint, uh, couldn't sprint for the most part, and was, certainly a liability on the defensive end, especially on the defense end. But regardless, you give him credit for gutting it out. Um, Listen, it's hard to criticize a team that's probably going to lose to the eventual champion, especially when you push that team to 7 games. If I'm the Denver Brass, if I'm the Kroenkes, I cannot go, despite how proud I am of my team, despite how hard they battle. I can't think what this season would have looked like, possibly, if you would have took care of the toxic environment that was Calvin Booth and Michael Malone a little bit sooner. Either the beginning of the season or say the All-Star break. Because clearly, first of all, you gotta give the Kroenkes that, give them all the credit in the world for making that move. The move, it worked. It absolutely worked. The team, they looked lifeless for most of the season, inconsistent, great, at times great offensively, played no defense for the most part for the majority of the season. Um, they make the move. They look like a completely different team. They look like a borderline title contender. And there were times during this series where you thought, hey, could this team possibly win the NBA championship? But what if that move is made before the season? What if that move is made in January? Not to relitigate to Booth and Malone, but the bottom line is that situation didn't happen overnight. That's something that's been brewing for a couple of years now, or have been brewing for a couple of years now. Especially the off season where especially last off season when they lose KCP. So again, you wonder what it could have possibly looked like. I'm not saying that they would have beat Oklahoma City. I'm just saying that you give yourself a better chance to possibly develop players in the regular season to be on the same page with your team, to have somebody at the helm that the players, that's listen, toxic environments. I don't care. Like a toxic environment, there's no way you can win the championship with that type of environment. And again, by the time they made this move, it was just too late. It was too late. The damage had been done over the course of the regular season. Their stars had a ton of minutes. They didn't develop the Strothers and Pickett's. They didn't develop those guys. You count on, uh, you know, 36-year-old Russell Westbrook, who is at this stage in his career the ultimate feast of famine player. So, for them again, they did a wonderful job to get to a game seven. They deserve a lot of credit from that standpoint. But they, even with that, you still wasted a prime MVP, all-time great caliber season by the best player in the world, and you don't get those. Those are we don't. I don't. I mean, you don't know how many. You don't know how many of those seasons you have left with Joker. You think you know. And I'm sure Boston a week ago would have been thinking, "Hey, you know, we're in great shape despite the second apron and luxury tax situation." Then, what happens to Tatum happens. So you just never know. Fortunes in the NBA can change in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. So they got a lot of questions to answer in the second in the offseason. The West is difficult. It's going to get better. It's going to get more. It's going to get harder next year. San Antonio, Houston are coming. Minnesota's not going anywhere. The Lakers are going to try to make some moves. Um, yeah, I mean the West is the West. OKC certainly won't be going anywhere. Next year, they have some decisions to make after next year. So the West is the West, and I mean, I don't know about Dallas. We'll see about them, but the West is a gauntlet, and I feel like this was a situation if you're a Denver Nuggets that certainly uh could have been avoided. As far as the overall Final Four goes, I love this Final Four because it signifies the direction that the NBA is headed in. It signifies a changing of the NBA landscape. If you don't believe it, then you're just not paying attention. You have three teams. Three of these four teams are are talent or have quality. Not only have star players, but have quality depth. Like these teams, Minnesota goes 8 deep. Uh, Indiana can go nine at times, 10 deep. Oklahoma City can go at nine and can go easily 9 deep, sometimes 10 deep. Minimum they're gonna play 8 players. Only the Knicks play about seven, but it's a quality seven. So this is where the NBA is at right now. You have to have quality depth. You have to have guys during the regular season that you have to empower your bench players during the regular season. You have to. And that was the rift between Malone and Calvin Booth. And, Calvin Booth not feeling like Malone was giving some of those guys enough time during the season. And Malone thinking that those guys just frankly weren't any good, basically. But you have to have quality players coming off the bench. Like Oklahoma City will not have the same advantage that they had against nowhere near the same advantage that they had against Minnesota that they had against Denver. Like Minnesota can come off the bench with quality players, with starter like Naz Reid, DiVincenzo are guys who can start for a lot of teams. Nikhil Alexander Walker. Those guys can start are starters. So they won't have that same type of advantage over over Minnesota. And that's where the league is at. And you get look at these four teams. Um, you get the one major market in New York. The NBA is better when the Knicks, and we'll talk more about the Knicks later on. But when the Knicks are relevant, when the Knicks are contending, the league is clearly better. It's clearly better. And you have these three small market teams that two of them have been in back-to-back conference finals in Minnesota and Indiana, and you have arguably the most well-run franchise in the sport right now in Oklahoma City Thunder. And you look at all four of these teams. All four of these teams have been benefit or were the beneficiaries benefited from big time trades. Halliburton, they move off Sabonis. You get Halliburton. They got Siakam from a trade. Knicks, of course, Bridges and Towns from trades. Um, Minnesota, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert from trades. Also got, of course, you got DiVincenzo. And of course, Oklahoma City. I mean, the Paul George trade, getting SGA, and they turn draft picks. They get the draft of 2000 up a couple years ago, 2022, where you get three rotation players. You get both Jalen Williamses, and you get Chet Holmgren at the number 2 pick. You get Jalen Williams, the All-Star Jalen Williams in the first round, and you get the other Jalen Williams in the second round. So they got three rotational off a trade from off a trade. They got three rotational players in one draft. So that's where the NBA is at right now. You have to knock out these trades, and you have to develop, draft, and develop talent. There's all there is to it. I mean, the guys that went to Indiana, those guys have gotten better. Those guys have gotten better. Oklahoma City's guys have gotten better, has been improved. Anthony Edwards, for the most part, has gotten better each year. And another recurring theme in this, even though there's still some lot of star power left, we'll talk more about two of those players later on in terms of SGA, and Brunson is going to be all NBA this year. Halliburton could be all NBA this year. But the day of the individual star, Joker, gone. Giannis, gone. Luka, gone. LeBron, gone. Durant doesn't even make the playoffs. That great individual star, those guys are gone. Those guys are gone. Like that, yeah, you want the best player in the series. The best player in the series doesn't mean as much as it used to be. It doesn't mean as much as it used to be. You like to have the best player, but Giannis got, like I said, Giannis got wiped out by the Pacers. Joker, loses to OKC. LeBron and Luka lose to Anthony Edwards and company. This is where the NBA is at. We will have a 7th straight year with without a repeat champion. That's the most in NBA history. And I think that, with this second apron and the current collective bargaining agreement, I just think that this is the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future. I have to see a dynasty. I don't see a dynasty like coming about anytime soon. The West, I know Victor Wembanyama is going to be a generational talent. Houston has a chance to do some great things in the trade market and they get the right player. And I understand Oklahoma City is great now, but the West is a bloodbath. It's an absolute bloodbath. I don't like I mean, you'd be hard pressed to see a team out the West making it to back-to-back finals, let alone back-to-back, let alone winning back-to-back championships. It is more difficult than ever in the NBA to be good, to be great for a significant period of time. And that's what the NBA wants. The NBA wants parity. Period. They want parity. They don't want a handful of teams dominating the sport. It's not what they want. Now, time will tell Whether we realize whether that's in the best interest of the league, only time will tell. But that's how it's going to be for the foreseeable future. Like we kind of went over what the playoffs have taught us. Got to have quality depth for the most part, and you listen. You have to like eventually you have to defend. Like Indiana's defense is significantly improved from where they were last year, from where they were at the beginning of the season. We already know about what OKC and Minnesota can do. Even the Knicks in that last closeout game played some of the best defense they played all season in that game against Boston. Just completely shut Boston down. You have to play some semblance of defense in the playoffs. In the playoffs, you do. Like that's like that. That kind of goes without saying. I mean, listen. I know Denver. It's kind of an aberration last year when they won the championship, not being a top 10 defense. Um, it's not going to happen more times than not. And if you look at Denver's numbers in the playoffs that year, they played great defense. In the finals, Denver played great defense in 2023 in the finals. So that's more of you're not going to have too many situations where a top 10 defense doesn't win the chip. I don't think you're going to have that situation this year because I think the champion is coming out the West, to be honest with you. We'll get back to the NBA, but we're going to continue our series, Best of 21st Century, with the classic 2007 film, There Will Be Blood. This movie comes out, of course, in a great year for movies in 2007. Remember, you had a bunch of stuff: No Country for Old Men, American Gangster, Zodiac. Uh, you had leaving out the movie with McLovin. That movie, super bad. So that was a great year for movies, to say the least. So this movie was had a budget of $25 million. The gross was 70, ended up grossing 76 million. Rolling Stone had it as the number one film of the decade. Of course, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. He did Punch Drunk Love, Magnolia, and of course the classic Boogie Nights. I hadn't seen this movie in a long time. I actually have it on DVD. Probably I hadn't seen it since I watched it on DVD, and I can't remember the last time I watched the movie on DVD. It's been can't like been maybe 10 years since I've watched the movie on DVD. Maybe not that long, but between 8 and 10 years. But I hadn't seen this movie probably. I want to say I hadn't seen this movie probably in like a decade, to be honest with you. And I'm telling you right now, this character Daniel Plainview, if there was a on the piece of shit meter, he's at a 20, not a 10. This guy was, I mean, I couldn't believe how horrible of a person this guy was. Um, of course, brilliantly played by the legend Daniel Day Lewis, who of course we know has three Best Actor Oscars. Does not play in a lot of roles, but when he does come out with a movie, he destroys it. Only been in 30 movies. Daniel Day Lewis has only been there, and Daniel Day Lewis is like 68. It's not a spring chicken here. He's only been in 30 movies, which is a low number to say the least. But that's how he moves. He just when he will not. He is very specific about the roles that he takes. I can make a case that this was. I don't think this is his best role. I still think Bill the Butcher in the Gangs of New York is between that and my left foot. I would lean towards Gangs of New York, but this one, you talk about the voice, just his presence in the movie. He was in almost every scene, and this is a guy that's just it was a evil, just evil human being. Everything was transactional with him, and the amount of I can't imagine the places that Daniel Day Lewis had to go to sum up the type of performance that he had to give in this particular movie. Talk about a guy who gave his son alcohol to put him to sleep. Talking about a guy who used his son as a prop, uh, had no human connection with women. He was about his money and about power and about consuming and destroying anything that got in his way. One of the better endings from a symbolic and metaphoric standpoint that you will see in a movie when you really break down how this movie ended. I know a lot of people. There are a few people that wasn't too keen that when it first came out, or when this movie was first came out. Um, you know, wasn't in love with the ending. The ending has aged over the time. It's aged, very well, and it the ending was perfect considering staying consistent to how much of a piece of shit that this dude was and how empty this guy was. This guy, in essence, ran everybody away from him who had any connection to. He ends up basically alone in a mansion with a bowling alley, and that was a dope bowling alley, by the way. Like that mansion was cold. That mansion was that man like the set design. Give the set design people a lot of credit in terms of that, because it was a beautifully well constructed house and mansion with a bowling alley in it. And this dude again was this blends religion and capitalism and family. A lot of themes going on in this particular movie, but mainly it was greed. It was greed from his character. It was greed from the preacher, Eli, who he ends up killing at the end. Spoiler alert. It's about greed and pure greed and capitalism. Um, Even from a religious standpoint, some of the touched on a lot of these touched on preachers who are chasing money and who are false prophets as well. The character Eli, who is brilliantly played by Paul Dano, by the way. So those are the two main themes that it was touched on that it was touched on in this movie, that was depicted in this movie. Again, this is a movie that I want to say, like, I thought it was a great movie, but I thought the performance, and this shows you just the level Daniel Day Lewis is at. I thought it was a very good to great movie, but I just thought the performance was just iconic. Like, I thought this is one of the best performances of the decade, like of that decade, to be honest with you. And frankly, I talk about best of 21st century. I could put this in conversation with one of the best performances of the 21st century. Like that, like I said, he commanded every scene that he was in. Um, and you walked away. I mean, you had to absolutely hate this guy walking away. Like, this guy was, um, I couldn't respect this guy whatsoever. Again, he was a shrewd businessman, but he was, the guy, took advantage of people, and he just, like I said, he was out to absolutely destroy anything that got in his way, and very much reflective on what our society has and is and has become. As 2025 capitalism is at an all-time high in society, in the world in general, especially in America. So this was a one of the best pieces of art in the 21st century. The young man that played his son, HW, never acted after this ever again, ever. And he was, by the way, he was from the area in Texas. He was a non-actor. They got a non-actor to play that role. So that's one of those things that you and I would know by, if you're not, don't, if you didn't research it, do research on it. Um, Of course, this was shot in the same area that No Country for Old Men. No Country for Old Men was shot by the Coen brothers. This was a you talk about this role was very much written, specifically written for Daniel Day with Daniel Day Lewis in mind. And I really like again, there are a ton of great actors. So I just couldn't envision there's certain roles that you can't envision any other actor playing, and I just couldn't envision anybody else playing this particular role other than Daniel Day Lewis. To be perfectly honest with you, so best of the 21st century, There Will Be Blood. Who won the week? The Knicks fans, of course. So the Knicks go make the conference finals, completely deserving. I don't want to hear anything about the Jason Tatum injury. It's an unfortunate, horrible, horrific injury for a great player, a top 5 player who had been one of the more durable players in the NBA. So I felt horrible for Jason Tatum. But the Knicks would have won that game, and that 3 games to 1 is 3 games to 1. Um, so I guess for the Knicks fans, looking back, going 25 years without making a conference finals, you're talking about a quarter century. The Knicks have had some lean years, to say the least. They've had some awful coaches. They have been one of the worst ownership situations of any team in professional sports, of the 4 major sports. Uh, so when you see them celebrating Friday night, climbing poles, minus the garbage throwing on the Indiana Pacers fan, that was just some fuck boy shit. You can't do that. You can't throw garbage on somebody. I don't care if they have a Pacers jersey, whatever. I don't care if they had a Boston jersey. That's just something you just absolutely can't do. The Brian Windhorst shit was classes, but funny. I'm not gonna lie. I laughed my ass off when I was sent somebody, a friend of mine sent me that on Instagram. Me on Instagram, I did laugh, but it probably uncalled for from that standpoint. But the throwing trash is completely unacceptable, and that's just something you can't do. But for the most part, the Knicks fans had their night. It was a party. Have every right to celebrate. Have zero problem with it. They've had some horrible years. They've gone through some horrible teams. They've gone through. It's been a lot, mostly dark times, minus a couple Carmelo Anthony years here and there that the Knicks fans have had to witness as a franchise. And I'll say this: what those 25 years make you realize is, to me, how underappreciated the 90s Knicks were, right? I hear a lot of people, I used to hear a lot of people complain during, even when they were winning, about those teams, the style of play, them coming up short. Let me keep this in mind. From 1992 to 2000, those New York Knicks teams, 9 straight years, won at least one playoff series, went to 4 conference finals, went to 2 NBA finals. You know who they lost to? They lost to Jordan. They lost to Olajuwon. And they lost to Tim Duncan. So there was clearly a lack of appreciation for those teams. Clearly a lack of appreciation. It's hard to win It's hard to win one playoff series 9 straight years. It's not easy. It's not easy. And yeah, Patrick Ewing, Hall of Famer, top 75 player, was on the Dream Team in 92. He never was the best player in the league. I'll be hard pressed to say, I don't know if Patrick Ewing was ever regarded as a top 5 player. Maybe at his best was a top 10 player. Probably has a couple second All NBA team, second team All NBAs on his mantle. Okay. He doesn't get the appreciation that he deserves, to be honest with you. Great coaching, Pat Riley, Jeff Van Gundy. Those teams never got appreciated the way they should have for being always in the mix, always in contention. So it's like, hey, the basketball guys are like, okay, cool. Y'all don't appreciate this. Y'all appreciate these 9 years. Okay, we're gonna see what the next 20. We're gonna. I'm gonna make you next 25 years. I'm going to make you appreciate those '90s Knicks teams, and I bet you moving forward that you as a Knicks fan have to appreciate how good those teams were back in the '90s because it's not easy to win. It's not. It's not easy to be consistently good year in and year out. Win a playoff series year in and year out. And again, they lost to Jordan, Olajuwon, and Tim Duncan. So, I think that it, yeah, I had to go. I had to go back and look at, like how good was those Knicks teams? I mean, I remember a couple of finals, but they went to the playoffs with the nine straight years of winning at least one playoff series and going to the conference finals 4 times. Like that's nothing. Like that's nothing to sneeze at. It's not. And again, I get it. You want to win a championship. I get it. It's hard to win a championship. It's hard. It's hard to win a championship in any sport. So, with that being said, Knicks fans had every right to celebrate on Friday. We'll see what happens in the conference finals. I think conference finals. So, I think the conference finals. I'll look in terms of the West. I listen. Oklahoma City. I picked Oklahoma City at the beginning of the season, especially after they made the acquisitions to get Hardenstein and Caruso. There's nothing that I've seen that changed my mind that Oklahoma City not only will win uh, the conference final against Minnesota, but will go on to win the championship. I think they are the team to beat. I think the series against Minnesota is going to be a fascinating matchup to watch because Minnesota has a lot of talent. They have a lot of depth. They can pose some problems for OKC with the on the offensive glass. Um, but ultimately, I think that the difference will be, to me, the fact that Minnesota can get loose with the basketball, excuse me, and the fact that I think that OKC does, not only have the depth, edge in depth, but they have the best player on the floor. And when you look at the SGA Anthony Edwards matchup, it's a lot on the line between those two. It's a lot. Like if Anthony Edwards can somehow take out another great player, the presumptive MVP in SGA, and go on to win a championship, you're talking about face of the league. He's the face of the league. If he can beat SGA and then go on to win whoever they play, whether it be Indiana or New York, he absolutely winning a championship at the age of 23. He's the face of the league. He is absolutely the face of the league. If SGA goes out there, wins this series, and wins a championship, SGA will complete one of the great individual seasons in the last decade, and maybe probably the best individual season since LeBron 2013, when LeBron won MVP as well as won a championship and Finals MVP. Remember, Steph Curry won regular season MVP in 2015. Iguodala won Finals MVP. Horrible job by the media people from that standpoint. Steph Curry wins regular season MVP 2016. They, of course, blow the 3-1 lead to Cleveland in that finals. Um, so it's not as very as has been rare, very rare for a regular season MVP to win the finals MVP, to go to be on a championship team and win the finals MVP. SGA if he goes out there, he caps off one of the great guard seasons in the 21st century. And he inches closer. He'll be right on the heels of Joker as the world's best player. Like Steph GA if he finishes the job this year, and then next year goes out there and possibly repeats, he will be in line to be the best player in the world. So it's a lot on the line for those two. You're talking about, we're ranking the guards right now. We go SGA, Luka, and Anthony Edwards. Those are the top 3 guards in the world right now. SGA, Luca, and Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards absolutely has a chance to jump Luca with a championship this year. He wins the title this year. I would say Anthony Edwards will crack my top five, maybe even maybe even to get to fourth on the list of the great players in the league, of top players in the league. SGA will probably finish the season regardless of what happens at number two. Not gonna finish number one. Even if he wins a chip, he's not gonna finish number one. He'll have to repeat next year to take that away from Joker. But he'll be right on Joker's heels to be number one if he wins the title next year. So there's a lot on the line between those two. I remember I did a segment a couple years ago on who would you rather have moving forward, SGA or Anthony Edwards. And I pretty much, despite the fact that at the time SGA was the MVP, was first team All NBA, I pretty much said that definitively thought that it was Anthony Edwards because of the age factor. At the time, Edwards was only 21, SGA was 24, going to be, I think 24, was 24, or about to be turned 25. And I said it based on the age factor. SGA has taken a major leap since then. To a point to where you asking that question right now, frankly, yeah, Edwards is younger, but SGA is like just the efficiency standpoint. He just makes less mistakes, doesn't beat himself, and that is the efficiency, the just the amount of control he has with his game. Like Anthony Edwards could be reckless. He can be reckless with turnovers. He can be reckless with shot selection. You don't get that from SGA. SGA is an efficient, cold-blooded killer. And that's what you respect. And again, the game never seemed like it is almost impossible to speed him up. So right now, I don't know who I would take, to be honest with you, between those two players. I'll get it. Maybe this series will decide, who I would take in those for the next 3 to 4 years. To be honest with you, right now I don't know. When I 2 years ago, I would have said without question Anthony Edwards. Without question, I would have said that. But right now, I don't know. We'll see. So we just don't learn. We don't learn in regards to Angel Reese and Caitlin Clarke. This is the real thought of the week. So, opening up the WNBA season, you had the Sky playing the Fever. The Fever, of course, just absolutely destroy Chicago. I think it was 93 to 58. And instead of talking about Caitlin Clarke's triple double and her great all around game, 4 blocks, two steals, and Aaliyah Boston, who was phenomenal, 19, 13, and 5 blocks. We're talking about a flagrant foul. So Caitlin Clarke hits Angel Reese on the wrist. Angel Reese has something to say. A flagrant foul is called. Some shit that we see every day in the NBA. Stuff that happens all the time in the WNBA. And what comes out of it, just this discourse that basically is a continuation of last season. We have not learned. The internet hasn't learned. The media hasn't learned in regards to how to discuss Caitlin Clarke and Angel Reese. When I saw the play, I didn't think much of it. I've seen a million players respond when they get fouled hard. And this discourse doesn't, nowhere near the discourse comes out of it that came out of this particular situation. Again, the same mistakes were made. Like last season, you had a group of media people who didn't know what the fuck they were talking about because you could tell never watched WNBA basketball, who all of a sudden became experts on how women should conduct themselves on the court. And y'all motherfuckers still haven't learned from last season because now you're telling women how to respond or how not to respond. And you tell Angel Reese, well, she overreacted. I didn't see Angel Reese throw a punch. I didn't see Angel Reese charge Caitlin Clarke. I saw Angel Reese have some words towards Caitlin Clarke after the foul, after the fact, after the game. Angel Reese said this: basketball play, refs got it right, move on. Perfect response as far as I'm concerned. Perfect response. And again, I want to say this: this is not a rivalry between these two. It's not. You can't have a rivalry that's driven by either hate or the perception of hate. By the way, I don't think either one of these players hate each other. They've been, if you follow them closely in regards to how they have spoken about each other, they've been highly complimentary. Even going back to college, been highly complimentary and respectful of each other. Period. Period. So I don't think they hate each other. Do I think they care for each other in terms of are they doing, are they texting each other saying, "Hey, girl, you know, good, how's your season going?" No, probably not, which is okay. It's okay. But again, a rivalry comes from high level competition. Bird and Magic was a rivalry because they played for a championship in college, and they ended up being the two defining players of the decade of the 80s, and they met the finals three times. It's about competition and playing basketball at the highest level. That's the rivalry. That's a rivalry. This is not right now. It's not. This is not a rivalry. And I went online for a bit, and I see. Well, one thing that I was kind of surprised. Well, I shouldn't say I was surprised by this, but the MAGAs are very forgiving at times when it comes to Caitlin Clarke, because you remember in the summertime, she basically, basically brushed him aside and basically would told y'all, I don't rock with y'all from that standpoint. I'm not a racist. I don't rock with y'all. Some of the shit y'all was talking about in regards to WNBA players, and particularly black women. Y'all when it came after this situation occurred, y'all were very forgiving to Caitlin Clarke. Y'all was back on the Caitlin Clarke train in regards to shitting on using Caitlin Clarke to shit on Angel Reese. So y'all can be, y'all can have y'all moments of forgiveness, I guess. But this situation, this discourse, I hate the discourse when it comes to these two. I hate the media's reaction when it comes to these two. Um, because it's not about basketball. It's really not. It's not about basketball. Again, you're telling a black woman how to respond or how not to respond. You're giving or you're using Caitlin Clarke to shit on Angel Reese. So we have not haven't learned from last season, haven't learned anything. So we just gonna do the same old dance of disgusting discourse another year. And again, the story of this game was Caitlin Clarke was phenomenal in this game. It was Aaliyah Boston and the fact that Indiana could be a title contender. That's the story of the game in essence. Angel Reese had a pretty good, decent game. I mean, 12 points, 17 rebounds. Still, offensively, we'll still see about her some of her offensive capabilities. But this, like, a hard foul, a flagrant call, it happens all the time in basketball. It is basketball. Women foul each other, breaking fucking news. And again, the ref called the flagrant foul. If it had been a flagrant foul, cool. If it wouldn't have been called flagrant foul, I'd been fine with that as well. I wouldn't have been going up here saying that, hey, uh, Angel Reese, is getting hammered. And like I said, I had no problem. It was a hard hit to the wrist. Angel Reese responded. That's that. That was it. That was it. But again, it turns into everything but basketball. So Y'all haven't learned it. Y'all have not learned anything when it comes to coverage of the WNBA or when it comes to discussing the WNBA. You haven't. And you don't you by any means you don't know how to discuss Caitlin Clarke or Angel Reese. You really don't. Internet media for the most part. I actually again there are a select few who actually cover the sport in a real way, who know what the fuck they're talking about. I'm not talking about them. They know. I mean, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about the some a lot of the women the women reporters and people and beat writers who have put poured their lives into covering the WNBA. I'm not talking about you. I'm not. I'm really not. It is the general media. It's the talking pundits, the Johnny come latelys. That's what I'm talking about from a media standpoint. So that's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil Podcast. Have a great, wonderful rest of your week. I'll see you next time.